when I read the Bible, God doesn't change.
Yeah.
I'm the Alpha and the Omega. I'm the beginning and the end. Right?
Yeah.
Why would we think any of these things that we read in the Bible magically somehow changed? Well, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. Demon possession doesn't happen anymore.
I know.
Are you kidding me? We probably have more demon possession now than any time in history.
Yeah.
We just don't even we don't even know it's happening anymore.
I'm a cat. I'm a dog.
I mean, come on.
I don't know what I am. And
Man.
or they are they. Now let's get. We could go there, couldn't we?
We could, because it's true.
It's
demonic.
Demonic. Yeah. When Aleister Crowley took L. Ron Hubbard out to the desert, and they did, I will say, Babylonian sex magic, and opened a portal, and he drew a picture of it, and it looked like a little alien gray. He said his name was Lamb, and he was a demon.
Well, hello and welcome to the Tinfoil Hat Club. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Ben.
And thank you for joining us yet again. So I'll start off by saying, if you're joining us via live stream, thank you very much. If you are listening to this, you're probably listening to it a few weeks after we actually recorded it. So if you're on Spotify, Apple, or various other places that you actually normally listen to the podcast, you can catch our live streams. The easiest way to do that is to go to thetfhc.com/live stream. All right. You can do it that way. And you can actually click a little button when you go on there that will, you'll see the button when you first go to the website. You'll click on the button, you go into the live stream, and you click the little bell at the top, and you'll see all of our upcoming live streams, and you can add it directly to your calendar. So if you're joining us via live stream, we actually can see all of the chat. So all of the chat from YouTube, Rumble, and our website. So you can, of course, watch the live stream on our website, thetfhc.com. And you can also catch it on our Rumble channel. So youtube.com/@thetfhc. And then also on Rumble. I believe we are rumble.com/thetfhc on there. Yeah. So if you're joining us via the live chat, we can see your chats coming in. We'll try to incorporate those, answer your questions, or whatever the case is. But if you're listening to this a few weeks removed, on one of the services, join us for one of our lives one of these days. That would be fantastic. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
So welcome. This show today is actually an interesting one. It's so funny. We've had so many times where whatever we're talking about or we're planning or whatever the case is becomes relevant at the time that we wind up doing the show.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's so uncanny. So you can definitely see God's hand moving in some of that, which is pretty awesome. So Ben and I are actually going to talk about, the show is obviously titled The Witch of Endor. And we are going to start with that story today because it kind of highlights a very clear-cut story in the Bible of effectively witchcraft and sorcery.
Yeah.
And seancing. So really would be the main thing that it is. But we're going to kind of get off of that path, and we're going to talk about some other stories in the Bible as well that kind of go along those lines. And I think we have a tendency to think that, this stuff never happens anymore.
I know.
And it's one of the things in the church that we just deny a lot of times even exists, or we just try to pretend it doesn't exist, which is, there is real witchcraft and real sorcery out there. And I don't think we really have a good grasp on the depth of how far it can really go, what its power really is, and what can be done with it.
Yeah.
And it's really terrifying.
Yeah.
And when we read clear-cut stories in the Bible of this stuff, and I just don't know where the breakdown is. I mean, I kind of have some ideas where the breakdown is as far as the church, but I don't know why we magically think it stopped from some kind of, magical happenstance.
I know. That's, well, I think we have bigger churches to think because of that,
Yeah, we're busy talking about our feelings and we just ignore.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of talking about feelings that occurs.
Yeah. And it which is good.
Yeah, I mean, we can't deny that we're humans, we have feelings, but that's all we do. And then that.
But sometimes you have to move past that.
Yeah.
And instead of feel, act.
Yeah,
and act in godly way.
Right. And when it comes to certain things, if it's counter to God's word, God doesn't really give two rips about your feelings.
No, he doesn't.
I'm like, if you're not following my will, then you're not going to like what happens.
I like to tell this story. Maria's grandpa there was some kind of conversation going on, and he ended up saying, "I don't care about your feelings," and it was.
I may have made a comment like that a few times here recently, which is pretty cold and callous because most of the times when we use it, we're probably not using it in the right circumstances, right? Or more godly thinking. But
it was just one of those. This is the way he was,
Yeah.
And we can look back and laugh now.
Right.
But it was probably something serious.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have Justin from the Prometheus Lens joining us. So, a good friend of ours. He always jumps in here and is sure to join the chat. And he says, ancient Whoopi from the movie Ghosts. Or from the movie Ghost.
Why isn't there a sequel to Ghost? He's been dead. How many years?
Yeah, you could just call it Ghosts.
Yes. He should be able to come back by now, right?
Yeah, I would think so, right? So that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to start off with scripture. We're going to kind of read the story of the Witch of Endor. And we're going to kind of dive into that. Now, before we do that, a couple quick announcements. Just kind of want to share with you guys what we do have going on the Tinfoil Hack Club. Now, by the time, if you're listening to this, you may have missed the sale because when Ben and I typically do a recording together, it's a few weeks before you see those. But when we do a guest episode, those typically take about 12 weeks before they see the light of day. So if you want to actually catch the guest episodes early on, you need to join us for these live streams. But if you head over to the tfhc.com and you hit /merch, all right. So when you land there, you're going to see we are actually doing right now a very cool, and I'll throw this up on the screen here, a very cool sale at the moment, which is fun. And we have these fairly regularly, so you can catch them. This is the Cheap Trick or Treat sale. Yeah. So we have these super cool hoodies that are actually designed with this picture right here you can see on the front of the chest blown up larger, but yeah, it says I want you to want me, and Bigfoot here is wearing one of our t-shirts. So kudos to my wife who designed that. But those hoodies are on sale right now for $39.99, regular $45, and then if you become a member of the show, you're going to get them for $34.99,
and there you go.
So an extra $5 off.
It's a bargain.
It is. I think you and I are talking about scooping up a couple shirts. Maybe you'll see us. We'll model some of these, so hopefully you catch those. But head on over there. Head on over to the merch site.
It's perfect bonfire weather to wear one of those. And if you're out in the woods, it's inviting to Bigfoot.
There you go. So you can have a talk with the Squatch.
Yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't rip you to pieces. Well, that's pretty good. Did Blurry Creatures hire you to do their intro?
I don't know. They don't even know who I am.
No, they don't know who we are, but that's okay. Maybe that's better.
Yeah.
Just stay under the radar. Right?
That's right.
So yeah, just a couple announcements for you guys. So if you want to check that out, that is a awesome thing to do. Also, when you're over on our website, the tfhc.com, if you just minute you go there, a couple seconds, you're going to get a green pop-up box. And what that's going to do, if you fill out all that information on there, it's actually going to subscribe you to our newsletter. So you're going to get alerts the minute we're doing live streams, and we're going to kind of let you know that ahead of time. We're going to let you know what episode came out for the week. We're going to let you know about merch sales, all this stuff.
What did you say the key thing to do? Fill everything out?
Fill everything out.
Yeah.
Fill everything out. The other thing, too, is we're going to give you a 20% off coupon for your first purchase in the merch store. So you can damage us with that and get your hands on some good merch. And then we'll also send you an invite, or you can go yourself and actually get an invite to the private fans page for our show.
Fill everything out, right?
Fill everything out. It does let us know that you're a real person. I have had to deny a few people that I think we're trying to infiltrate the fans group that I think were not really people, or they needed to go elsewhere.
Robots.
So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into the show today. We're going to get into these texts, and we're going to have a good talk on the Witch of Endor. So I got this pulled up here. I'm going to read this text, and we typically read from the CJB, and it's important to kind of understand the story here because you can see the fall of Saul. Ultimately, this is during, and you can find this in 1 Samuel 28, where I'm going to kind of pick up in verse 3. And Samuel is dead by this point, and the first verse here tells you that. And Saul is, in his infinite non-wisdom, really freaking out by this point, and he has decided to abandon all reason and pretty much drift away from God. He's hunted David to no end at this point, and so he's kind of at the end of his rope.
Yeah.
And he decides that he is going to do one final thing that is going to really cause him some pain. So, Sherry, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. So we pick up in verse 3. Now Samuel was dead. All Israel had mourned him and buried him in his city, Ramah. Also, Saul had expelled from the land those who tell the future by communicating with the dead or with a demonic spirit. Now, this might get me in trouble, but I have to just say, I heard a certain individual who shall be remain unnamed recently say on an interview, and he's a fairly well-known individual, who said, I do not believe certain entities are demons, but I do believe that they may be demonic.
It makes no sense.
No, it didn't make any sense whatsoever. It's kind of like, so you go on runs. Yeah, but I'm not a runner. Well, yeah, you kind of are when you go on runs. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. So we see here that he's decided to consult what would be a medium, which we know is a no-no in the eyes of God. Don't play with that. That's not a good thing. The Philistine assembled, and they went and pitched camp at Shunem, while Saul gathered all Israel together and pitched camp at Gilboa. When Saul, by the way, incidentally, if you are not familiar, this is an interesting geography lesson. If you actually go look up Gaza, okay, where the Gaza Strip is, that is actually where the Philistines were from.
Yeah.
Okay. When Saul saw the army of the Philistine, he became afraid. It struck terror in his heart. But when he consulted Adonai, Adonai didn't answer him, not by dreams, not by Urim. So since we read by the CJB, if it doesn't have a good translation into English, it leaves the original Hebrew, or translates into the original Hebrew, Urim, whatever that would be, and not by prophets. So basically, God's not talking to him anymore.
Wonder if it was the ephod.
Could be, but I would think it would say ephod. I think there's other times where it maybe says ephod. I'm trying to remember the Kyla incident.
Yeah.
And I think it does say ephod, but I don't know. Then Saul said to his servants, try to find a woman who tells the future by communicating with the dead. I want to go and consult with her. His servants answered him, yes, there is a woman in Endor who tells the future by communicating with the dead. So Saul disguised himself by wearing different clothing, went with 2 men, came to the woman by night and said, tell me the future, please. Bring up from the dead the person I named to you. The woman answered, here. You know what Saul did, how he expelled from the land those who tell the future by communicating with the dead or with a demonic spirit. Why are you trying to entrap me into causing my own death? But Saul swore to her by Adonai, as Adonai lives, you will not be punished for doing this. Yee. Then the woman asked, never a good idea, especially when God's not talking to you, you probably shouldn't speak for him.
Yeah.
The woman asked, whom should I bring up for you? He said, bring up for me Samuel. When the woman saw Samuel, she let out a shriek. Then the woman said to Saul, why have you deceived me? You yourself are Saul. The king replied, don't be afraid. Just tell me what you see. So I'm going to pause right here because I want to dive into this a little bit. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll finish reading and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah.
The woman said, Saul, I see a godlike being coming up out of the earth. And a lot of the translations there are Elohim. I have looked that up, which is interesting. He asked for her, what does he look like? She said, an old man coming up. He's wearing a cloak. Saul realized it was Samuel, so he bowed with his face to the ground and prostrated himself. Samuel asked Saul, why have you disturbed me and brought me up? Saul answered, I'm very upset because the Philistines are making war against me, and God has left me and doesn't answer me anymore, neither by prophets nor by dreams. This is why I've called you, so that you can let me know what to do. Samuel said, why ask me if Adonai has left you and become your enemy? Adonai has done for himself what he foretold through me. Adonai has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to your fellow countryman David.
Yep.
Because you did not obey what Adonai said and execute his furious anger toward Amalek. That's why Adonai is doing this to you today. Adonai is giving Israel as well as yourself over to the power of the Philistine. And tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. Adonai will hand over Israel's army to the power of the Philistine. Saul immediately fell full length on the ground and became terribly frightened because of what Samuel had said. He had no strength left in him, for he had eaten nothing all day and all night. The woman approached Saul, saw that he was in a panic-stricken state, basically, and said to him, Here, your servant listened to what you said. I put my life in my hands and did what you requested me to do. Now, therefore, please listen to what your servant says. Let me put a little food in front of you, then eat, so you will have some strength when you go on your way. But he refused and said, I won't eat. Then his servants, together with the woman, urged him, and he heeded what they said. He got up off the ground and sat on the bed. The woman had a fattened calf in the house. She hurried to slaughter it. Then she took flour, kneaded it, and baked matzah with it. She served it to Saul and his servants. They ate. Afterwards, they got up and they went away that night.
You know, I know we get into this, but when they say they slaughtered, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, to butcher an animal
that
and then
takes a while.
Process the animal, and
yes,
they're probably a lot better at it than we were, but still takes a long time. That's a lot of work just to cook something.
Yeah,
it's like I always think of that in the case of God coming to Abraham.
Yeah,
like they do something similar.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, could you sit here for about 4 hours while I prepare this animal for you?
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy, man.
But anyway.
Yeah, it's nuts. So there are a few things in here that you see. So clearly what we've got here is it's really interesting because, here he at one point did what he was supposed to do and ban all this stuff from his kingdom.
Yep.
And now he's at the end of his day here. Because what we find next, we're not going to necessarily read the rest of the story because there's some other texts that I think we'd get into today that kind of highlight this even more. But he winds up killing himself the next day, ultimately. Yeah. He falls on his own sword and deliberately kills himself because he knows he's going to get killed. So, but it's interesting because the response from Samuel is interesting.
Yeah, just like, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's like, bro, why'd you bring me up here? Yeah. I was happy down there, man.
Now, my question that I've had all along with this story.
Yeah.
I don't doubt the power of mediums. I don't doubt any of it. But whose power was used? Was it the mediums or was it God's?
To call Samuel up?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing that I wanted to get into today too.
Oh,
because,
wow.
Yeah, go figure, right? It's an interesting conversation because ultimately, and I think I've seen this kind of cause some, consternation among Christians, which is, we kind of talked about this on the phone, I think, the other day. Are all of these gifts from God just being used for wrong?
I would have to say yes.
I would tend to believe so too, because Satan's not our creator, God's our creator, and I think these gifts were naturally imbued into this particular woman.
Yeah,
she's just using it for,
and maybe God just
wrong
enhanced things a little bit more for.
Well, or did Satan?
Yeah. Well, I mean, bringing up Samuel.
Yeah. So okay. So when we look at that too, there's some interesting things in here. It just goes to show you that we have the ability to tap into Sheol, to tap into the true afterlife, because this is afterlife. Dude's dead. He's gone, right? To tap into the afterlife and bring this dude up out of Sheol and from paradise. Yeah. There's no way Samuel is in torment. No. I think we know that. It's pretty common sense.
Yeah.
Bring this dude up out of Sheol from paradise just to have this conversation. Now, the interesting thing is he says, tomorrow you'll be with me.
Yeah.
You and your men are going to be with me.
Yeah.
What do you think he meant by that? You're going to be with me in paradise, or you're going to be with me down here in Sheol, but you ain't going to be in no paradise?
I never thought about it till right now. I always thought it meant you're going to be dead like me.
Yeah. And this one says, you're going to be down here with me. Yeah, I think it says down here with me, right? I think it's what it said. Well, why have you disturbed me and brought me up? I love that line.
I know.
Bro, what? What gives?
I was resting.
I'm very upset because, he's like crying in his beer here, but yeah. Let's see. I think it says, tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. It doesn't say down here with me. Will be with me.
But still.
Does that mean in paradise? Or does that mean you're just going to be in Sheol and you're going to be in torment? Because you go back to the parable.
I don't think. I don't think Jonathan was.
Well, yeah, that's true. I don't know if Jonathan was killed in this battle.
Yeah, he was.
Was he killed in this battle too?
Yeah.
You and your sons will be down here with me.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just a general term of like,
Yeah. But God walked away from Saul.
yeah. So it's like, do you think that like walked away, like completely walked away, like you have made your fate for eternity?
Yeah.
Walked away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the way it reads, right?
That's how I always understood it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting thing.
But I think Jonathan was okay. Because
Yeah, I mean, that was David's best friend.
Because
Right?
yeah, God,
And he seemed to be a righteous man.
God, what is it? Will put your transgressions to the fourth generation.
Mm.
The father's transgressions to the fourth generation.
Where does it say that at?
It's in one of the books of the law.
Interesting.
And if you are righteous, to the 1000th generation.
Mm. Wow.
So, and Saul's line was cut off, I think, to the fourth generation.
Mm. That's interesting. I was just going back and playing in my head the whole curse on Canaan.
Yeah.
And then, you kind of go through Ham, Canaan, and then you have...
Arphaxad.
Well, no, that's down the line.
Yeah,
But really you go Ham, Canaan, Cush, Nimrod.
Yeah.
So technically Nimrod would be number 4.
Yeah. And look what happened.
And look what happened.
It cut him off at the fourth generation.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. So, this story kind of highlights in really clear terms the power of what someone with this spiritual gift can do.
Yeah.
And now the converse would be true too. Would you be able to call someone up from torment in Sheol?
Probably.
I don't know why you couldn't.
If you know how to tap into it.
I mean, I would think you could.
Yeah.
Because the only difference between the two parties, right? So, okay, we need to back up a little bit. If you have not heard us talk about this before, I think this is an important pause point to kind of highlight because this is not well taught in the church. When you die, even today, you are either going to go to heaven now, if you're a believer in Christ, right? If you're a Christ follower, or you are still going to go into Sheol, into torment. At this particular time, we don't have Christ. So what would happen would be that you're going to either go into, think of Sheol separated, and this is really simplistic. It gets deeper than this, but
dark and light.
Yeah, dark and light, 2 different compartments, paradise and torment. Obviously, Samuel would be in paradise. We're talking about where would Saul be sent? Would he be sent to torment? Would he be sent to paradise?
Yeah.
Because the prodigal, the parable rather of the rich man and Lazarus that you see, is it Matthew 18?
Luke.
That's always Luke. Yeah, I always mess that up in my head. Sorry. That you see Jesus tell everybody in Luke is clearly outlined how this works.
Yeah.
And they seemingly can communicate with each other, but they just can't pass over, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So
that's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing over there? Oh, it sucks for you.
It's like, doesn't that suck, right? There's this huge cavern that's, which you, when you read the book of Enoch, that you have this more descriptively described for you, which again, in the Bible, we kind of have to piece this together in retrospect when you read things, which is really hard to do because you don't have the overall context of like the book of Enoch to clearly describe it. It's very difficult.
There's an old joke that this guy is getting toured around of hell. I'm being, very general. And there's these guys just standing waist deep in manure. They're like, if that's what it is, I'll do that. And they're like, all right, break's over, back on your heads.
Yuck. They would like to have it that good.
Yes.
That's the sad part about all of it. So yeah, we start off with this story, but then there's some other interesting things too that I pulled up that this is actually talked about in the book of Sirach as well. And I pulled that up. I didn't actually pull this one up. Let me see if I can get to it really quickly. Yes. And I think it goes into the story as well, where it talks about this. But the other thing, and while I'm pulling this up, 46:20. We have some other stories that are more well known, and this one's fairly well known, but some other stories that are well known involving the Exodus, where we see some of this too. The powers of sorcery, right? Because these are all kind of, I guess, sorcery powers that you would think of. And again, I think, do you think like D&D and some of the things and the way that we just flippantly talk about sorcery nowadays is to deliberately...
and D&D was created by a Christian.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, that would track.
And,
yeah. But and I'm not saying it is. It's just an interesting question.
I think I hate to say dumbed everything down nowadays.
Yeah.
Everything's so polluted and saturated with everything.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
So I found it here. It's in the book of Sirach, which is an extra biblical text. It's actually not, I guess it's an apocryphal text. Kind of probably should separate the two. It's an apocryphal text. So if you get a hold of the Apocrypha, a lot of Catholic Bibles will have the Apocrypha in it. You will find the book of Sirach in there.
Yeah.
And it's in chapter 46, verse 20. And it says, even after he died, talking about Samuel, even after he died, he prophesied and revealed to the king his death from the grave. He spoke as a prophet to blot out the wickedness of his people. So you kind of have a couple different spiritual gifts going on here, right? In contrast, in the story, you've got a medium that can call up entities from other realms, right? And then you have a prophet who can prophesy what is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of going to the witch was, I need to know what's going to happen.
Yep.
Right? So that I can save myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're not going to save yourself, bro. Good luck. Not going to happen.
I've witnessed things like that.
Like the medium or like prophecy?
Yeah.
Well, you've had some prophetic things. You have a bit of prophetic gifting in you. Yeah. We've talked about before.
Yeah.
I don't think I have. That's not my gift.
And we've kind of talked about this before.
Kind of glad it's not my gift. I want it to be.
The church really doesn't
know
how to handle things like that.
No, the only church that I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of churches, a lot of different denominations, which if anybody's listening to this show for any length of time, they know that I absolutely abhor denominational Christianity.
Yeah. Because
I think it separates us and doesn't unite us. I think it just causes more problems, more harm than good, right? Yeah. But the one church that I will give a lot of kudos to is the Vineyard Church. They actually put you through what they call SOCM school. It's SOKM, School of Kingdom Ministry. And it's all based around trying to identify and help you nurture your spiritual giftings.
Yeah. Now, like my wife, she is very gifted in things. Very intuitive.
Yes.
When she was younger, I think she said this on a show before, probably when she's been on before, she could do tarot cards. Like when she was like 14, 15. And
which to me at that young of an age tells me that you have innate gifts and innate ability.
She knew. I mean, she was like, boom, boom, boom. It was before we started dating. It was kind of like she was still doing it. And then
before you whack the heathen out of her.
and it was like me.
I said it, not Ben.
Me being raised, yes, it is bad, but we don't understand it. We just label it, and there is no, this is going to be a very poor, like Christian Harry Potter school for that.
No, that's true. No, it makes a lot of sense.
There is.
I did not, Adrian went through SOCM.
Yeah.
One of the things that when I watched her go through that I did not care for is I think they pushed really hard for you to try to use spiritual giftings that you don't necessarily have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I am not a prophet.
Yeah.
I probably am not going to do well even trying to do stuff like that. I have other giftings, right? And you typically have a primary gifting and maybe a secondary gifting. And you can have other instances where if you're in tune with God, where he may use you for certain things. right?
Yeah.
But you're going to have probably a primary gifting of some kind. Which it's interesting because, for anybody that wants to kind of look into that, you can actually find a book. There are several books out there, School of Kingdom Ministry, but there are other books out there about finding your spiritual gifting. But if you want to find more in the Bible about it, that actually comes from, and I pulled it up here, it's 1 Corinthians 12. And we actually start in verse 4. And it says, now there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit gives them. So, I think here you go.
Yep.
Especially the Holy Spirit, right? Also, there are different ways of serving, but it is the same Lord being served. Now, that's an interesting thing, too. So when I would say yes to this, when you are doing like the Witch of Endor, I think you are serving not God. I think you're serving Satan.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Or are you serving God?
Nebuchadnezzar, my servant.
That's true. Yeah.
And what have we learned? God does everything through proxy.
Typically, yeah. It's an interesting thing.
So
No, there it gets in there, but most of the time it's via proxy.
So it's almost like God's playing chess against himself.
I think he's going to win. So it continues on. It says, and there are different modes of working, but it's the same God working them all and everyone. Moreover, to each person is given the particular manifestation of the Spirit that will be for the common good. To one, through the Spirit is given word of wisdom. To another, word of knowledge in accordance with the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. And to another, gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another, the working of miracles. To another, prophecy. To another, the ability to judge between spirits. To another, the ability to speak in different kinds of tongues, which always freaks me out.
Different kinds of tongues, not different languages.
CJB. Yeah, different kinds of tongues. And to yet another, the ability to interpret tongues. Now, I'm going to pause on that because I just want to say, Paul does go on to state, and I don't know if it's in here, but it's somewhere. I think it's right around this area, this text, maybe another chapter. He does say that if you speak in tongues, you need to have someone there to interpret that. Otherwise, you're just babbling on for no good.
Yeah, nobody else is going to get it.
Nobody else is going to know. And you're not even going to know.
No.
You need to have an interpreter.
Yep.
So just a side note on that.
Yeah.
One and the same Spirit is at work in all these things, distributing to each person as he chooses. For just as the body is one, but has many parts, and all the parts of the body, though many, constitute one body, so it is with the Messiah.
Yeah, I will tell a story about speaking in tongues. It didn't happen to me. The day that our second son was born, one of Maria's friends, her parents went to a full gospel church, so they speak in tongues and everything.
Yeah, I've been to one.
And
same time every week, which I was like,
her dad said he was sitting there, and everybody was talking, and he said the only thing he could understand was Isaac. He's like, that's all. He goes, from everything, everybody talking. So all I kept hearing was Isaac, Isaac, Isaac. And that was the day Isaac was born.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have known.
He wouldn't have known.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. So it's like, if he was.
I mean, it says it in the Bible. It's a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. So we're like, well, he knew Isaac was born.
Yeah. Isn't that funky?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a very negative interaction. It's not a very negative. It just was very canned ham to me.
Oh yeah. It's like,
because I went to another church that was, I think, non-denominational. I don't think they were any denomination. Christian church, whatever.
Yeah.
And every week, same time.
Yeah.
We'd get up and babble on, and then somebody would interpret, and I just was like,
I've always wanted to go to one, but I don't want to be there till 2 p.m.
No, this church is very scripted, right? You're gonna have your moment of babbling glory, and then we're gonna have somebody interpret that, and then we're gonna move on. And to me, it just left me with a spirit of falseness.
Yeah.
Just ugh.
Yeah.
And who am I to say, right? I'm not.
No, we're not.
It just left me with a discerning bad vibe, I guess.
Yeah, I understand.
Because it felt very scripted, and I don't think, giftings aren't scripted like that. I don't know. That's just my take. But
yeah,
it left me with the oogie boogies. So we see the other thing too is, it's funny because as I've been digging into several things here lately, I was curious when I started digging into this in preparation for the show, and I pulled up the Septuagint because I really have enjoyed looking in the Septuagint to see what the Septuagint says, even against our CJB.
Yeah.
And there have been some times where I am seeing, because I did dig and find that our CJB is based on the Masoretic text.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I am having more and more problem with the Masoretic text the more I dig.
Yeah.
Because it's been very watered down.
Yeah.
And I still like our CJB more than any of the other translations I've seen.
I do too.
But I am really liking the Septuagint. And it was amazing too. You want to have some fun. And you can go find the Septuagint. Just do a search for a PDF and you'll find the Septuagint. And what I have determined is the Septuagint is actually probably about 900 years or more older than all the Masoretic text.
Yeah.
Right. And
I think it was right around
100 BC or something like that.
Like right around Alexander, somewhere around there.
Yeah, well, they took them to Alexandria, I believe, is where they took them all the rabbis to translate everything.
Yeah.
And
that's an interesting story.
I think it was 70. Did they take 70? Which is a funny number.
Yeah.
You know, that we took 70 rabbis.
I know.
Yeah, so like just pull up a PDF of the Septuagint and look up giant. Type in the word giant, you know, because it's nice when you have electronic copy. You can just do the Alt F or whatever and do a search and you can find all the words. And I got like 37 returns. And then I compared those to our CJB. And it was amazing to me how watered down the CJB was.
Yeah.
They would use like, you know, great mighty warrior or something like that. And then the Septuagint was like giant. Giant.
And
because a lot of times they would be talking about the afterlife.
Yeah.
Right. They would be talking about Sheol. And so the reference of giant makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. There's like Dinatone, which were David's men.
I've never heard of that before.
They were like, that's where we get the word dynamite.
Really?
Yeah. It's a Greek word. And then, I can't remember the other Greek word for the giants, but it was like similar, but different.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting.
Yeah. And that was from the Septuagint.
Yeah, the Septuagint's interesting. So I pulled the Septuagint in this particular instance and was just kind of looking at it, you know, to look for the differences or whatever. And it was, you know, it was pretty close because there was really not too much in here that really needed to water down, I guess, from that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty straightforward. The other thing too is the sometimes the Septuagint is really straightforward. You know, it doesn't really kind of beat around the bush a lot, which is interesting. So yeah, it pretty much reads the same. So it's just kind of interesting. But yeah, we kind of looking into another area here. The other one that I zeroed in on was the story, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, of Moses.
Yeah.
When he goes to Egypt, right? Because we can see another clear incident of sorcery.
Janus and Jambres.
Yes, Janus and Jambres. And this is a fun one too, because this is going to take us down a little bit of a road to kind of defend the gospel of Nicodemus a little bit.
Yeah.
So we have a comment here I want to read from James Shrimp Fajitas, which I always love your name when I read that, James. I've learned that anywhere it says mighty men, it's talking about different types of offspring of the fallen. Yep. A lot of times it's talking about post-flood Nephilim, a lot of times, like the Rephaim and stuff. Yeah. Brother Timothy, thank you for joining us as well. Appreciate it. But the Janus and Jambres incident is interesting because the only time we get that name is in 2 Timothy. So we're going to circle back to that because that's an interesting thing that I want to talk to you about. How we know who that is.
Yeah.
Okay. But I want to go through the story in Exodus first. And we can actually find this in Exodus 7. And I'll just pick it up in verse 6. Moses and Aaron did exactly what Adonai ordered them to do. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron was 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. Adonai said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh says to you, perform a miracle, tell Aaron to take his staff and throw it down in front of Pharaoh. So that it can become a snake. I always probably say that wrong, and I say Moses threw it down his staff, but it was actually Aaron. Yeah. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did this, and as Adonai had ordered. Aaron threw down his staff in front of Pharaoh and his servants and turned it into a snake. But Pharaoh, in turn, called for the sages and sorcerers, CJB, and they too, the magicians of Egypt, did the same thing, making use of their secret arts.
Yeah.
Interesting term, secret arts.
Yeah.
Each one
Why
threw
is
down.
it secret?
Indeed. Indeed. That has a very much a flavor of some of the things that I've been involved with, maybe here in my past, where we have secret things and secret arts and secret societies and secret rituals and things like that. Not good. Each one threw his staff down, and they turned into snakes. But Aaron's staff swallowed up theirs. Nevertheless, Pharaoh was made hard-hearted, and he didn't listen to them, and then we know the rest of what happens.
Just like Saul, hard-hearted.
Hard-hearted. Yeah, never get yourself in a spot where God finally just goes, okay.
Yeah.
We're just going to go ahead and just keep making that harder and harder because that's what you want.
Isn't that crazy?
Scary.
I mean, that's scary.
Because it's kind of like the roller coaster ride. Like once you're at the top of the hill, you're coming down.
Yeah.
You're going down, bro.
Yeah. You are.
So don't put yourself there. So that's why it always talks about, so many times.
Heart of flesh.
Hard-hearted, though. What hard-hearted will turn you into. It'll destroy you. It will destroy you.
Yeah. That's why you need to have heart of flesh, vellum. Easy to write on.
There you go.
Just like the rock where they wrote the blessings on.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It'll destroy you. And we see that with people too. Like you become bitter. Yeah. Then you become bitter, it's over. Yeah. You're going to have a hard time getting out of that because it's just such a spirit that overtakes you.
Yeah.
But what I really want to dive into here is clearly we have the word sorcery. Clearly we have, I forget what it says in the Septuagint, but a lot of times it'll just say wizard.
Yeah.
It says wizard. Like in the case of the Witch of Endor, it actually reads as wizard in here of like when Saul was, telling everybody to get out of the kingdom when he was actually right. And the woman said to him, behold, now thou knowest what Saul has done, how he has cut off those who had in them divining spirits, right? Meaning he cut the people who had this gift off, and the wizards from the land.
Yeah.
It says wizards in the Septuagint.
And they said divining gifts or spirits?
Divining spirits.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just an interesting term. Now, no name is given for these sorcerers that belong to Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
No name is given. And we read this really strange passage when we get to 2 Timothy, all the way in the New Testament, however many 100 years, 1,000 years later, thousands of years later. And we have this interesting passage that just kind of boop, pops right out of Paul's mouth in 2 Timothy.
Yeah.
And you're scratching your head. I'm like, who are these people? And let's see. It is in 2 Timothy 3, verse 8. So I'm going to read that really quick. And I'm actually going to start at the top. I'm going to start at 2 Timothy chapter 3 in verse 1. And it says, moreover, understand this. In the, I'm going to butcher the Hebrew, Achrayat Hayamim will come trying times. So that's an interesting thing. I wonder what that means. Achrayat Hayamim. Because I have the beauty of Google, which is not beautiful at all, but it is useful for our purposes today, we will highlight that and we will search and see what that is. There are multiple, here's what it says. There are multiple matches for Achrayat Hayamim. Oh, I feel terrible even saying that because I know it's so horrible, including a Hebrew phrase, an Israeli band, and a book. I'm going to go with the Hebrew phrase is what we're going to go with here, not the Israeli band or a book. Here's the Hebrew phrase. That is a Hebrew phrase that translates to, what do you guess?
Tribulation?
End of days.
End of days.
Yeah, end of days. In Jewish eschatology, this refers to events that will occur at the end of days, such as the resurrection of the dead, the coming of the Messiah, and the ingathering of the diaspora?
Yeah, that's where all of the, all of the nation, or all
dispersed.
the tribes. Yeah, all the tribes that were dispersed.
Okay.
That's when God calls them home.
Okay. So we'll continue on. During this time, he says, will come trying times. People will be self-loving, money-loving, proud, arrogant, insulting, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, uncontrolled, brutal, hateful of good, traitorous, headstrong, swollen with conceit, loving pleasure rather than God. And they will retain the outer form of religion but deny its power.
That's today.
Did I read anything that wasn't a gigantic checkbox? Right?
That's today, man.
Especially when you get to conceited, loving pleasure rather than God.
And the last part about religion.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. They retain the outer form of religion but deny its power.
Yeah.
Hollow faith.
Yep.
I'm a Christian, but I do whatever I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am saved by the blood of Jesus, but I act ungodly all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay away from these people. For some of them worm their way into homes and get control of weak-willed women who are heaped with sins and swayed by various impulses, who are always learning but never able to come to full knowledge of the truth. Now, this is where it gets interesting for today's discussion. In the same way as Janus and Jambres opposed Moses, so also these people oppose the truth. There are people with corrupted minds whose trust cannot pass the test. However, they won't get very far because everyone will see how stupid they are. Just as happened with those two.
Yeah.
So you read this, and I know when I read it the first time, I'm like, who are Janus and Jambres?
Yeah.
And I don't know, even like when I reread that later on, I still didn't make that connection of like, because what we're referencing there is we're referencing the sorcerers that we just read that threw their staffs down on the ground.
Yep.
Now, I don't know how you make that connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Paul knew.
But Paul knew. Clearly, right? Paul knew.
Yeah. Probably some second temple literature they had that we don't have.
Right. I mean, somehow this got passed down the line.
Yeah.
Right. And by this point, we're pretty far removed.
Yeah.
Okay. But your point, second temple literature, because the other thing that we know, the connective dot here comes to me, the way I see it, in the Gospel of Nicodemus.
Oh, yeah.
Because we read in the Gospel of Nicodemus, and I just happen to have it here, Ben.
And it's a good read. You should read it.
I would highly recommend the Gospel of Nicodemus. I'm gonna also reference something that we see in Jubilees 48:8, because we see a similar story. And I want to read this. So this is the book of Jubilees, which if you don't know me at all, you know that I love the book of Jubilees. And here we have the cat show up again. Prince Mastema stood against you and sought to deliver you into the hands of Pharaoh. He helped the Egyptian sorcerers when they stood up and committed the evil acts they did in your presence. Indeed, we permitted them to work, but the remedies we did not allow to be worked to allow to be worked by their hands. So we're going to come back to that because I want to finish the Janus and Jambres thought. So I should have gone there first.
No, you're fine.
But I have this already pulled up, I do believe. And this is and again, you can get PDFs of all these. You don't have to spend money. If you just go do a quick search for Gospel of Nicodemus PDF, the Book of Jubilees PDF, the Book of Enoch PDF. You know, if you want to buy a nice copy, that's cool, but you do not have to do that. You can get all this stuff for free. So we're going to look in the Gospel of Nicodemus in chapter 5, verse 5. And I happen to have that pulled up right here because I was prepared today. Thus Moses, when he was sent by God into Egypt, wrought the miracles which God commanded him, which we just read. God said, Moses, Aaron, here's what you boys are going to do. You're going to go here. When Pharaoh starts to talk his nonsense, I want you to throw your staff down. Right? Before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and through the magicians of that country, Janus and Jambres, wrought by their magic the same miracles which Moses did, yet they could not work all which he did. And the miracles which the magicians wrought were not of God, as ye know, O scribes and Pharisees. But they who wrought them perished, and all who believed them.
Yeah.
So here we have a very clear, written out in front of us.
Yeah.
Here's who these dudes are. And again, we can track back the Gospel of Nicodemus to, I think I tracked it back to like 200 or 300 AD. They're fairly confident it was at least that old.
Yeah.
So this isn't one that somebody wrote in like 1200 AD.
Yeah.
This is old.
Yeah.
So I don't know when the Second Temple period really, well, I guess it would cut off at probably at 70 AD, I would say, when the destruction happens. That would be the end of the Second Temple period, obviously.
Yeah. But still, it's close to it.
And if it goes back further than that, because there really there's a lot of argument that says this might go back actually to be what it actually says it is and written by who it says it's written by, which would be Nicodemus.
Yeah, I know. That's the crazy thing.
So, and there are a lot of other things in here, not to make the show about the Gospel of Nicodemus, but there are a lot of other things in here too that have always been celebrated in the Catholic Church. And then from that, because the Catholic Church we all come from is the root of all of our religion, typically, as far as Christianity goes, modern Christianity is typically the root of
the symbolism.
Right. But we have all of these saints, people that we have sainted, like Longinus.
Yeah.
That name is never used in the Bible at all, yet it's in the Gospel of Veronica, the woman who suffered from bleeding. Nowhere in the Bible is her name ever mentioned, but magically we get that name and it shows up in the Gospel of Nicodemus. Demas and Gestas, the two thieves on the cross.
Yep.
Never mentioned in the Bible as far as by name, but wind up showing up in the Gospel of Nicodemus.
Yeah.
So interesting text. Not again, the show's not about the Gospel of Nicodemus, but it does kind of show that it's worth a read.
Yeah.
To go back and read it because it does provide some interesting reading material.
So obviously there is a school for the dark arts.
Yeah, we got that right. We just don't have we don't have Hogwarts, but we seem.
Yeah. Well, my question: why isn't that?
Well, I guess in that particular case, like to your point, the School of the Dark Arts would be all of these, the occult, right?
Yeah.
And like that's what this is, the Aleister Crowley stuff and all the things. And this stuff is happening, guys. It is happening. They are currently actively doing this, and it is growing fast.
Yeah.
Like you just started this book that you're reading.
I'm going to hold it up.
Yeah, go ahead, hold it up.
This is an old book, but let everybody see it.
Yeah, he came to set the captives free. This is the lady at the bottom. Rebecca Brown, MD. So this is a medical doctor. So go ahead and share the synopsis of the book.
I was at Barnes and Nobles yesterday. Hey, I saw this book, and pretty much it's about a Christian woman and a witch and here in America, and they get into a spiritual battle. I'm only on page 8. So, and there is a warning at the beginning of this book. It said, if you don't want to have bad dreams or things, don't read this book. And then there's a prayer to help you with the book.
Yeah.
So, but obviously the church is dropping the ball when it comes to spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
And how to combat. It's like one of those, just pray it away. Just pray it away.
That's exactly what my wife was told.
Pray it away.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to know about all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how come I can sense things before they even happen? How can I feel like I can communicate with something that's not there?
I postulated something interesting the other day, and I want to talk about that here in a second. I guess let's finish with what you were just bringing up, because now we have this book, and you're going to keep reading it, and we talked about maybe reaching out to the author to see if she's still available. To speak, which
I'll give my report when I'm done with it.
Okay, cool. but we have, if you guys haven't checked out the show that came out this last Monday, our conversation with Dr. Michael Lake, which was a great conversation. I'd love to have Dr. Lake back, and we're in the process of talking to him possibly about coming back. He began his journey kind of down all of the paths that he has gone because his family came under demonic attack from physical people and that were literally in cults. And I mean, they were physically trying to kill him and his wife and his family.
Yeah.
And in the show, we didn't really get into it because we were kind of talking about something else, but he mentions that, this witch got in the car, like jumped in the car with his wife. They put water in his power steering, which he was told is like an old CIA op trick to, oops, you had an accident. and you died because your power steering went out on the highway at 70 miles an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he's got a crazy story. I would like to have him back and maybe talk about the occult, because his book, The Shinar Directive, which you can find on our website, thetfhc.com. We have a guest page for everybody on there too. So if we have a guest on and you want to get one of their books, please head over to our page and you can use our affiliate link to do that. It helps them, it helps us. But the Shinar Directive, which I am almost finished with, but his chapter on the occult was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I would love to have him back just to talk about that.
Yeah. We just,
because all of this is the occult sorcery, what you're reading there, all of what we just read today, that's what all of this is.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting too, and we're going to have more as we kind of switch gears and dive back into Jubilees. We're gonna talk about this, but how we kind of postulated a question earlier in the show today that, you know, does some of this gifting come from God or does it come from Satan or whatever? I think all the gifting comes from God, and I think you can just use it for evil.
Yeah.
And sometimes God allows it, and sometimes God doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
By proxy or directly or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But kind of before we go back to Jubilees, one of the things I started to bring up, and I want to go back to as well, is I started to have a thought, because we know among us, I don't think anybody would challenge this. We have people who are narcissists, sociopaths, which can be physically dangerous or not, as can narcissists. And then we have psychopaths, right? And it's kind of like, I always call it the Olympics of crazy.
Yeah.
You know, you've got narcissists that come in with the bronze medal, and then you got a sociopath sitting at silver, and then the gold medal is the psychopath.
Yeah.
And we see this commonality among like serial killers and things like that.
Yeah.
There's literally the wiring in your brain is not there.
Yeah.
Like it is missing.
Yep.
Here's what I postulate, and I want to get your take on this. Do you think it's possible? Because I don't believe these people can be saved. And that's very controversial, because we are brought up to think, well, everybody can be saved.
After that show we watched last weekend that I was telling you about, Walk Through the Fire on Netflix. If you haven't watched that, guys, Through the Fire on Netflix.
Yeah, I'll have to try to find that tonight.
It's
maybe not for Adrienne. She doesn't like to watch that stuff given what she's had in her past.
That's like the first crime documentary that's actually scared me, where I didn't want to go to the bathroom by myself.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
It was the premise of like somebody's a psychopath.
You didn't know what was happening. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah.
But there was a line in there, the guy, what he said scared the bejesus out of us.
Yeah.
And he drew a picture. And it was like, oh, okay. I don't, well, you know my thoughts on some things, and I don't want to get into some things.
Yeah, right.
But I will say,
you guys put me $20. I'll tell you all about it.
we'll discuss. I think we're actually going to discuss it coming up in December.
Oh, okay. I know where you're going now.
But everybody's name is written in the book of life that can be saved.
Okay, yes.
Your name gets blotted out if you don't accept it. But there are names that aren't even written because they're not even supposed to be alive.
Now that's where we come to my question.
And
are these people born without a soul?
Do they have do they have a soul? Well, we could go, do they have a soul, or are they the offspring of their father, like Jesus said? A murderer from the beginning.
I just wonder if, like, as part of the fall, we have gotten to a certain point now where, like, maybe this entity gets, I don't know, I could counteract myself too, that says before you were stitched together in the womb, and all this and that. But could they be born and, like, God knows, like, no, you're defective? you are not. You are missing DNA.
After
No soul.
After we watched that, my wife works in the court system. She's a court reporter, so she sees a lot of things. And there was this one thing she was telling me about, that she was part of the trial and everything. This was years ago. And she was like, I think that's what happened to that guy, that he went and broke somebody's house, killed the guy, tried to kill the lady, tried to rape her.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
She said, I think he had a devil with him the entire time, and then it entered him.
Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about that. These people, whether you're narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, you are like prime for demon possession.
They feed off that.
I think so too. There's no doubt about it.
I think they really feed off that.
So, yeah.
So no, I don't think they can be saved.
It's an interesting thought. Now, I want to pause here, because this is one of those things that we get into on the show, and people get really mad, and they start to go after us. Which fine, you can't control some of it. But
we're just discussing something.
We're not saying this is the way it is or whatever. So if you're gonna get frosty, just cool your jets. Put some Jello in your pants and calm down.
If you can't entertain a thought, why can
we are supposed to do that, because it draws us closer to the Lord to understand what's happening, right? And it's just a discussion. The whole point of this show is to generate discussion, to talk about these things, and to inspire thought, so that people, and we've said from the get-go, don't take Kyle and Ben's word for it. Go read for yourself. Like, we're reading text to you. Go read the text for yourself. Yeah. By all means, please. So, we like to have these conversations on the show, because I think it's important, because we don't have them in church.
No.
And the whole premise of the show from the very get-go is we talk about things that the church doesn't like to talk about.
Yeah.
Because we have completely abandoned that, and for the, touchy-feely safety nature of it.
Yeah.
So now this is the interesting part, where we see a little bit more of the backstory, kind of going back to the Janus and Jambres thing. All right. Where we read in Jubilees. So I'm going back to that now. And it says, and this is, let's see, chapter 48. And this is verse 8. Prince Mastema stood against you and sought to deliver you into the hands of Pharaoh. He helped the Egyptian sorcerers when they stood up and committed the evil acts they did in your presence. Indeed, we permitted them to work, but the remedies we did not allow to be worked by their hands. Yeah. So it's just interesting that you can see here a couple different things are going on. One, we have Prince Mastema that has popped up yet again in this story, which maybe we should just do a whole show on Mastema. We kind of really got into it pretty heavy, I think, in the adversary.
Yeah.
Or adversary. I don't know why I always say it weird, but the adversary episode that we did a while ago, that'll be coming out. The release of that will be coming out in a couple of weeks, I think, from Monday.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing. So we can see here God has ordained this and allowed it.
But then he stayed Mastema's hand to help remedy.
Exactly.
And they could only do so many. They couldn't do the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what
they could only do, like 3 or 4, and the rest they couldn't do.
It was even crazy, because it's kind of like, for me, I just speak for myself. When you go read the story of the Exodus and you read what is happening, you miss it, because you're so, I think we're trained and we're taught the story kind of like when we're kids, and so we never focus on what the sorcerers that work for Pharaoh were actually able to do.
Yeah.
They were able to produce some stuff. There is no way, without some kind of assistance, you as a human being could manifest the things that they were able to do.
Yeah.
Because they were able to repeat a lot of the crazy stuff. I think even even the Nile, they were.
I think they were able to do like at least 3 or 4.
And it was like, definitely to the point where you're like, whoa, it kind of, it pops out to you when you look at it.
But they couldn't stop.
They couldn't undo it. Yeah. Like, they couldn't undo, which we read here, but the remedies, we did not allow them to be worked by their hands.
Yeah.
They couldn't undo it. So.
And I also think of Balaam too, the prophet.
Yeah, you're talking the donkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens actually right before the Witch of Endor event.
Yeah.
It's a little bit before. It's like 5 chapters early. It's like Samuel 23. But go ahead and go there, and I'll while you're talking, I'll pull it up.
I thought that was during Moses' time.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the talking donkey.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
But anyway, he was hired by, I think, one of the kings to curse Israel as they were moving. And so he went and did it because he was a prophet.
Yeah.
And he went to do it, and it was all blessings, because God entered his mouth. And he was blessing him. The king got mad. I told you. Well, I couldn't help it because God, took over or something like that. And the same thing, he did that like 2 or 3 times. And I was also thinking about, we read it a couple weeks ago about the prophets of, I think it was Ahab, where he's like, he was like, oh, he'll tell me good stuff, to go to war.
Yeah.
And God caused him to do that. Like Amos says, I've always said that.
Yeah. I talked about that the other night at Friday group.
And it was like, it doesn't matter who it is, good or bad.
Yeah,
he's going to use them.
You're going to use the prophets to reveal the plan. Yeah, there's a lot of, when you go read your Bible, there's a lot of interesting things like this.
They use it as like a Sunday school lesson or a text for a sermon, but that's about it. They don't get into, well, why?
Yeah.
Why aren't we, my question is, why aren't we teaching this? Why isn't the church teaching to be prophets, to be, people to lay on hands, to heal, to see the future, to communicate with God? And I think that's, I will say, a medium. I think that's what that actually is. Straight communication to God.
Well, we can clearly see here, like a lot of times the prophets in question, like, are kind of like the greater prophets or whatever, but even some of the lesser prophets, like, they're talking to God.
And they look at the things they could do. That would be considered a wizard, right? It was Gandalf.
Yeah, I mean, you're having God do it, but you're asking God to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, was it Elijah with the rain?
Yeah.
The cloud, right?
Yeah.
Just produce a little cloud, or the whole story.
Look what
better there than I am.
Joshua did. Stop the sun.
Oh yeah,
make the sun stand still so he could kill more people.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that amazing?
It is.
Just.
Yep.
And then I had another.
Christ told us, he's like, if you have faith of a mustard seed.
I know, and we don't use that faith. That's
can move mountains. You could tell this mountain to.
That's where Satan works. He doesn't need to be calling up dead people.
No, he just needs to destroy our faith.
Yeah, he's already done that.
Yeah, he's destroyed who we are.
Yeah.
Like not who we are, but destroyed our perception of who we are.
Yeah,
like lessened us to think that we're not capable of a lot of these things that we can't actually do.
Yeah, and we can do them.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, there's so many examples. There is nothing for me when I read the Bible. God doesn't change.
Yeah,
I'm the Alpha and the Omega. I'm the beginning and the end. Right? Yeah. Why would we think any of these things that we read in the Bible magically somehow changed? Well, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. Demon possession doesn't happen anymore.
I know.
Are you kidding me? We probably have more demon possession now than any time in history.
Yeah.
We just don't even we don't even know it's happening anymore.
I'm a cat. I'm a dog.
I mean, come on.
I don't know what I am. And or they are they. Now let's get. We could go there, couldn't we?
We could, because it's true.
It's
demonic.
Yeah. Is it demonic or demons?
Yeah.
Oh. Which I'm going to pick on that statement. I think I gave you my rebuttal to that when Aleister Crowley took L. Ron Hubbard out to the desert, and they did, I will say, Babylonian sex magic, and opened a portal, and he drew a picture of it, and it looked like a little alien gray. He said his name was Lamb, and he was a demon. Sure, there's probably pictures of it that he drew. Probably look it up. Now, what more evidence do you need?
Have you watched Skinwalker Ranch?
I've watched some episodes.
Well, one of the things you find about Skinwalker Ranch, first of all, it's like way overhyped.
Yeah,
It's like ridiculously overhyped. But one of the things that does seem pretty consistent to me is that does seem to be, I think we have certain places around the globe that do have portals.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that there's a portal that exists there.
Even Enoch, the book of Enoch.
Yeah, it talks about portals and stuff.
And when was it Noah went in and he was like hollering for him? And then he showed up and he said, "Hey, grandson, what's going on?"
Yeah, I kind of do remember that. It's kind of near the end because one of the things that it seems to me the book of Enoch, first Enoch, I would not endorse second Enoch and third Enoch. I have not read those, but I've heard that we get more and more Gnostic as we get further away from first Enoch. First Enoch, at the end of first Enoch, is actually written from, well, the way it reads to me, is actually written by not only Enoch, but also
Noah.
Not just Noah, but also Methuselah.
Yeah.
So we kind of skip over Lamech. I don't see anything in there that is from Lamech's perspective.
Yeah.
It seems like Methuselah had a little bit in there, and then also Noah had some.
But he went and said, "Grandpa, what's going on with the earth?"
Yeah. So we had one that just said in the text or the comments over here, the size and amount of portals is increasing at a rapid speed. Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because what are they trying to do at CERN?
Okay.
Or is that not what they're trying to do at CERN? They're literally trying to rip a hole into like another dimension.
I was sharing this with Sherry at our church the other night. It's back in 2016. They set up the original like Nimrod portal that was destroyed in Syria in Times Square in 2016. And they set up another one in London, England, in Trafalgar Square. And they started setting these all up around the world. They just a big gate.
Yeah.
And one of the minor prophets, it said, "Watch out, old gates, because giants will be coming through you," or something cryptid like that. Now think about what's happening.
Some of the minor prophets are even more interesting read now than ever.
Yeah. Now, what we know now about with gates and portals, it wasn't just a fun thing.
No.
Look how bad it's gotten since then.
Yeah.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
And
well, anybody that poo-poos that idea, you really must have your mind shut off to stuff.
Yeah.
Because we know, like, you screw with the Ouija board, what are you doing?
Oh yeah.
You're kind of allowing a gateway for this entity or some entity to talk to you.
Yeah.
It's like we were talking about the unsolved mysteries, where the guy is running around.
Oh yeah.
And he has this entity. What was the entity's name?
Becky. I don't think Becky is Becky.
I don't think Becky's Becky either.
I think Becky's a demon.
I think Becky's a demon too. And that's the thing, is a demon will tell you exactly what you want to hear.
Oh, yeah.
A demon will tell you partly truth.
Yeah.
A demon will tell you lies.
And I think
and they have recordings of this thing.
And I think when
EBGBs.
the one when they went to Ireland, I think it was a bigger demon that got scared.
I think so too. Yeah.
Or what if that was the demon?
I don't know. There's so much there that's like tripped out. That's the thing too, is like, is there hierarchical structure in the demon ranks?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
The older ones.
Yeah. So like, I guess that's another question, right? Or have other than the 200, not the 200, but the Nephilim offspring, right? Who we know clearly, and when you read the ex-biblical text, especially, are made into demons, right?
Yeah.
The offspring are killed and made into demons because they're not written in the book of life. They were created here. So God's punishment was to remain here.
And just for, I believe that alien grays, quote unquote, are demons. For me, that's
and demonic.
And demonic. For me, that's where I stand. You can be poo-poo me all you want, but that's where I've stood for since I was probably 12 years old.
I think you're right. I know when we first started this show, I would probably tell you, no, I think they're from another planet, and maybe so, but I am leaning more and more towards demonic and demon of some kind.
Yeah.
And we are going to have, by the way, this is a good plug for a future show. We are going to have a discussion, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as the old folks say. We have it scheduled, but things happen.
Yeah.
With Karen Wilkinson coming up, which should be really awesome, where we are going to get into some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because she has a book out called Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, I believe is the name of the book. And we are going to have her on. When are we going to talk to Karen? Let's see.
Because I believe it's more surgical rather than intimacy of how they're making new things.
I agree too. And that's one of the things I want to get her take on.
I will say this for the record. I think because when God did his thing, the judgment, I think he kind of sealed the deal on that, kind of castrated him, if you will.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I would think so. That would make sense to me.
Yeah.
We're going to have that conversation with her November 20th. So we are going to have some. Now, remember, we're going to do all of these conversations live.
Yeah.
So you guys, and we'll put it up on the tfhc.com when you go there and you go to the live stream. So tfhc.com, you can click the watch live button, or if you go to the tfhc.com/live stream, you can see when all these conversations are coming up. And I've already started work on the artwork for this, and I just need to get it loaded up. But we're going to talk to her November 20th. And then we're going to have a conversation the next day with Timber Cleghorn from Alone, the TV show Alone.
Yeah.
He has an amazing faith journey. So that'll be two very different conversations. It'll be good, though.
Do you think, going back a little bit to like psychopaths and things like that, and do you think that the demonic spirits are just hanging out with them, or do you think they're in them? Because I can use scripture where it said, then Satan entered Judas.
Yeah, and I don't think Judas was a psychopath. I wouldn't put that on him.
I'm not saying
or
sociopath. I'm not saying.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I didn't mean to make it seem like you were. Yeah. I tend to think, man, that's a tough one, dude. The funny thing about these people is literally because there's DNA missing, right? Like they literally have something broken in their brain that can't be fixed.
Yeah.
Right. This manifests very early very early on in life too. So I think that, this is broken from the get-go. I think it's very possible that they may have a demon in them from a very early age.
Yeah. I
don't know if from birth, but from a very early age.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, we know, like we've studied enough serial killers at this particular point where we can tell that, there's typically childhood trauma of some kind that does something to the human mind that really affects these individuals. They experiment on animals a lot of times when they're young. That's the first gateway into serial killerville. Which, by the way, a couple different things that we have watched. Have you watched Nefarious yet? About the guy in the prison that says he's demon possessed and he's on death row.
I haven't.
That's a very good show. Everybody should check that out. The guy that plays him does such a good job, man.
I've seen clips and stuff of that.
It's the craziest character I've ever seen because there are times where, like, when the demon is talking, that you are just taken aback. Like you have this thing is just gross, right?
Yeah.
But then there are times that the demon allows the person that has been imbued to come through and like say hi for a second.
Yeah.
And you feel such remorse for this person. You feel so sorry for them because of what this demon is doing to them. And the guy that played him just did a phenomenal job. The other thing too, that's a scary peek into serial killer in Psychoville is the Zodiac, a documentary that just came out on Netflix.
Oh, about the Zodiac killer?
Yes. But I got to tell you, you will find out in the first 30 seconds of this show that they make no bones about who is the Zodiac. And they are 100% right. And they prove every bit of evidence you are ever going to need to show that it was absolutely who they thought it was.
Richard Ramirez?
No, he was was Ramirez the Green River Killer?
I can't remember.
That's crazy.
Sorry if I got somebody else.
We got so many
Yeah.
crazy serial killers were getting them mixed up. But no, it was Arthur Lee Allen, the guy by the name of Arthur Lee Allen. He was absolutely the Zodiac, no doubt about it. You watch this documentary, and I already believed it anyway because there's so much circumstantial evidence that showed that he was, and coincidental things. I mean, like, you get so many coincidences that stack up, and it's kind of like, come on. But what the crazy thing that came out of this is he befriended a family when they, like a mother, that the husband actually got put in Atascadero State Mental Hospital for molesting children. And so he like befriended this family. And there were 4. There was a young daughter, an older daughter, and then 2 brothers. And
is this a documentary?
Yeah, it's like a three-parter on Netflix. And long story short, he was taking these kids with him when he was doing these murders. And he used them as kind of a cover to even get through like police blockades and stuff.
Have you seen the documentary of the Son of Sam?
I have not. That's Berkowitz. I have not.
That was interesting because
he definitely seems like he had some demon possession going on.
He tells that he was part of an occult, and he was like naming people and where it was at. Nobody really believed him.
He was the one too. Like, he said that the devil Satan was talking to him, right, telling him to do all this, and the demon was talking to him and telling him to do it, or something.
If I remember, I think he ended up getting saved.
I believe he was a born again Christian and like was actually very influential in the. I think he's still alive. Isn't he still alive?
I think we watched this a few years ago, but it was a 6-parter.
So, that proves the point that maybe everybody can be saved. I don't know, but was he a psychopath? Was he a psychopath?
Or was he just?
Did he get possessed?
Or did he just get for the ride along? Like, hey, come on, kid. He was young,
right,
and didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting story.
I know we've kind of trailed off, but
no, we haven't, because it's all demon possession and it's all the occult and sorcery and things like that. And I mean, this is the real deal. I mean, that's what this stuff does.
Yeah. I always talk about Maria's family because
Sorry, before you go there, the reason I say this because it's an interesting thought. I read somewhere along the line, now the version of the Septuagint that I have did not do this at all. And this could just be Wikipedia, because anybody can write on Wikipedia. Yeah. But when you go on Wikipedia and you read about the Witch of Endor, it says in there, I believe, that the Septuagint actually makes it seem like she was a ventriloquist.
Yeah.
Which, in order to do that, you have to have this spirit that you've called up. You've invited it in to imbue you.
You're no longer a ventriloquist. You're possessed.
Right. You're possessed.
Yeah.
Which is funny because someone mentioned Ghost earlier.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we see in the movie Ghost.
Yeah.
Is at the end, or like times in the movie, I think, maybe it's just the end.
Yeah.
He can actually go in and like possess her or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you were talking about your Maria's family.
There's this house that's supposed to be the most haunted house in Indiana. Her family used to live there when they were like younger, and they knew things that would happen. I can't remember the name. It's been on every single ghost show. They've been there, but this was like years ago. This was like back in the 20s and 30s and 40s and things. And her grandma goes, "I remember living there." Yeah,
having had some experience as a child in a house that had some not good stuff in it.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Did you ever talk about
it? And the weird, and like somebody else that connected to them lived there too when they were a kid. But I remember him saying they nailed down rocking chairs and they would still rock.
Time to go. Well, it's like that one house they went into in the Netflix documentary where he took Becky with him.
Oh, yeah.
There was crap on the camera flying around.
I know.
Like, they ain't faking that. That's happening.
I know.
I'm out.
It's Satan's time is short.
He is. He knows it, as it says in the Bible. So I'm going to read something that somebody put in the chat here. So again, James Shrimp Fajitas. Always fun. Luke 21:26. I've got this pulled up. I'm going to back up to verse 25. So, and just to set the stage a little bit, This is Christ actually talking to the disciples about the end times, right? And it says, there will appear signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on earth, nations will be in anxiety and bewilderment at the sound and surge of the sea. It's an interesting comment. As people faint with fear at the prospect of what is overtaking the world, for the powers in heaven will be shaken. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with tremendous power and glory. That's also an interesting statement that we can point to in several places. And we talked about the other day at our Monday Bible study. When these things start to happen, stand up and hold your heads high because you are about to be liberated.
Yeah. That about that same time past show where Maria had that dream.
Yeah.
That she talked about on the show. Her brother had a dream where he was in the flood. And
like Noah's flood?
Like a very bad flood. And he was trying to get his kids out of the house.
Mm.
And he had, I think that verse came to his mind that you just read about the sound
and surge of the sea.
Yeah. He was like hearing a voice from heaven or something.
Mm. See, to me, when I read that, I think like a gigantic tidal wave.
Yeah.
A tsunami. So,
because he said he'll bring the mountains low and the valleys high. Wipe it clean.
Well, I know we talked about it in the past when we were looking at the eclipse and like looking at the olive and the tav and everything that it made, and like, hey, we were thinking that, hey, not sure, didn't say that it was going to happen, but said it was a possibility that we were going to get judged at the time. And they have I've seen continuous things that they're very concerned about the Cascadia fault line, which sits just off the coast of like California and Washington and all that over there.
Wasn't part of like I don't
because you have the Cascadia mountain range there, so naturally you're going to have a subduction zone there.
Yeah.
And they're thinking that if that has built up enough energy now, where if it slips, it'll actually create a tsunami, and it's so close to shore, they will have like no warning before it, and it will be mega bad. It will trash the whole western coast of America.
Yeah.
There was something prophetic that they had. Somewhere, was it Crawley that drew the map of America where like in the future where it was like all inundated with water?
Maybe.
I forget who it was that drew that. It's like a prophetic map.
This is what I take away from this. I wish the church would do a better job at educating people with real spiritual gifts.
Yeah, how much better off would we be to, one, identify what is happening? Right. All the stuff we talked about today, because it is still happening today, and it's happening in mass today a lot.
Yeah.
And two, we would be much more powerful at fighting it off.
Yeah.
You know, how powerful would we be and how potent would we be as a force for God if we were able to identify this stuff and actually combat against it effectively? But the church doesn't. The church is asleep, just like Christ tells us.
I mean,
the parable of the 10 virgins, right?
I mean, was it Peter and Paul and those guys, their shadow would heal people.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Paul would touch something and it could heal somebody.
Mm-hmm.
They were literally dripping with the Spirit.
What was the story too of the shroud? We can ask Peter or Peter. We can ask Paul about this.
Yeah, it would heal people.
Like Wednesday
up into about, I want to say 14 or 1500. Yeah. It was still healing people. No, I think I could be wrong on the date, but I know it still was. If you just look on it, you'd be healed.
There was a story of Christ says that he was going to send in the Bible. I forget who it was. He was going to send some of this. He was going to send something to this individual to heal them or whatever.
I think it was his image.
And then he died before that. And it never says that got done. But then the legend goes that they took the shroud there.
Yeah.
And he wound up touching the shroud and was healed.
I thought it was. I thought the translation was his image.
Is that what it was? Which is interesting.
Don't quote me on that. We can find out what Paul on Wednesday.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this coming Wednesday. So that would be the 30th, I do believe. We are actually going to be talking to our friend Paul Hansen. Poor guy. We've pushed him off like 2 weeks now. I feel bad. So, but by the time you guys listen to this, now again, if you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple or somewhere else, and you are listening to the replay of this and the kind of edited episode, you're going to be listening to this a few weeks down the line from when we recorded it. But you can always join us live, and you can join us on YouTube. You can join us on Rumble, or you can go to our website, thetfhc.com, and you can actually click on Watch Live.
Yeah.
Or you can go to the tfhc.com/live stream, and you can join us that way. And I will put it up right here so that you guys can all see the link. If you're watching, you can see that link right there. And I will also throw up here, because we didn't talk about it earlier, which is shame on me for that, I will put up our friend Paul Hansen right here. So we're going to have Paul this Wednesday, the 30th of October at 5 p.m. He's 5 hours ahead of us, so we're gonna have that one early that day. Just the poor guy is not up like 1 in the morning talking to us. So, but yeah, we'd love to have you guys join us. So if you come back on Wednesday, we're gonna have a great talk with him. Lord willing, again, and the creek don't rise. So, but yeah, that's really what we wanted to get into today. So there you go, the Witch of Endor.
Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that very much. And thank you guys all who joined us for the live and had comments. We really appreciate those. Love talking about that. Love diving in and talking about some of that stuff and including your thoughts in there. And thanks so much. And we will catch you next time and bid you adieu on the foil. Take care.
Bye.